Welcome to the Big Four Accounting Firms podcast, brought to you by bigfouraccountingfirms.com. If you enjoy our show, don't forget to help us out by subscribing to this podcast, sharing it with a friend, and providing us with a review on iTunes. Check out the show notes below for the link. Thanks, and enjoy the show. Hey, welcome back. Today we're continuing the Big Four experience topic.
And what we mean by the Big Four experience is a lot of people raise the question, is Big Four experience worth it? And the reason they ask the question is because people hear the horror stories about the amount of hours you have to work, how hard the work is, and they ask themselves, is it worth it? Is there another way around it? Can I go to another firm? Can I work less hours and still get the same benefits that the Big Four offers? And through the series that we're doing, we're trying to answer that question. And in part one, we discussed all the resources that are available at the Big Four and how that makes the Big Four experience worth it. And today we're going to be talking about another topic regarding client work and the clients that you get at the Big Four. And this one is a topic that's not really thought of when people are thinking about the Big Four, because when you're a younger person and you haven't worked in the Big Four, you're not aware of all the clients and you don't really think of the client work that you're going to have.
Yeah, correct. So my work experience working in public accounting is I started out in a smaller office of one of the Big Four firms on the West Coast, and they had different clientele than when I moved out to the East Coast, which are more financial services, bigger, larger companies, bigger, larger transactions. But both times I was able to interact with clients immediately, right from an associate level. And I find that really interesting because it teaches you a lot about professionalism, how to be professional, what is perceived professionalism, how to build that client relationship from a very early start in your career. And you're looking at it from the client service perspective. And then when you actually do transition into industry, you see it on the other side of how you are in industry and what type of service you expect, what level of professionalism, what level of knowledge you expect from your consultants. On that note, when you do transition into industry, you don't really have other clients that you're serving. You only have your one company that you're working on. And usually the procedure or the processes within industry jobs within your one company is so well laid out that you're doing that same work on a continuous basis. Every quarter you're doing quarter close. Every year you're doing year end. It's pretty routine work from month to month or quarter to quarter. And you're not really exposed to the higher level management. You don't get to go speak to the VP of mergers and acquisitions or the VP of finance or the directors of treasury. You don't get that level of exposure. But as a professional at the Big Four, from the associate level, right from the beginning, you're making calls. You're going out to the client site with your senior managers, with your directors, with your team, and you meet very senior people. You're in meetings with senior people. You may not, contribute much as an associate because you're there mainly taking notes, but you're still getting that exposure. You're still meeting them. You're able to see how business is done in the boardroom. And that is an experience that you do not get in industry. Even after working 5 years in public accounting, and then you go and get a mid-manager level job in industry, you're not exposed to upper management once you're in-house, when you're the in-house accounting department. You're no longer exposed to management, about the management goals, about the big transactions that are on their plate, what they're dealing with, what type of technical issues that they're having a difficult time understanding. That's no longer available to you. Now you're in your set role and you're doing your set responsibilities. Whereas in public accounting, no matter what level you are, you're in those conversations, taking notes, you're writing memos, you're reading memos. It's very good exposure, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing that I think needs to be considered as far as is Big Four experience worth it and the clients is, if you visit our website, bigfouraccountingfirms.com, you'll see that the Big Four have really prestigious clients. And like out of the Fortune 500, they're responsible If you look at all the public information out there, they're responsible for auditing over 400, and I believe it's over 470 of the Fortune 500. So the access to the biggest clients, you're only gonna get that at the Big Four. And the access to the biggest clients is important in my view, because that's where you're gonna learn the best practices, whether you're in tax, accounting, or advisory. You're gonna learn the best practices from the biggest clients. I'm not saying that the biggest clients are always the best at everything, but they're the ones that buy the most consulting services, whether it's from the Big Four or other firms, and you get to see, what the best accounting systems are, the newest technology, because they're the ones that are buying this new technology, whether it's robotics or automation or other technologies and other services, and they're going to have better processes. They're going to have controls because they have to comply with Sarbanes-Oxley. They're going to have the best tax planning. And you're not going to learn that if you have a small client in the Midwest, or you work in a small company in the Midwest or in the middle of nowhere. You're going to learn that if you work at the Big Four and work on these big clients. But another thing about having big clients and in the Big Four is that if you do decide to leave or go somewhere else, you're going to be able to say that you worked on a Fortune 500 or Fortune 100 or Fortune 50 client, or you had multiple Fortune 50 clients. And if you do decide to go small, you're not necessarily guaranteed that. You're not even necessarily guaranteed to work on a public company, a company that's on a stock exchange. And that's something that you really need to consider. Yeah, you might be able to get the technical knowledge and the accounting experience at another firm, but you're not going to get the huge clients just because the Big Four have a monopoly on audits.
Yeah,
on audits and even tax consulting at these other firms.
Yeah, especially in the smaller markets, smaller offices in the middle of the country, smaller offices in Texas or California, Arizona, Nevada. When you're in the smaller markets, when you work at Big Four, you have the better clients.
For the region.
Yes, for that region. You have access to the Fortune 500 companies. And like I said, from my experience working in the smaller offices, they usually loan you out to other offices in the region, in Colorado and various other places throughout the country, because as the bigger offices need more help, the smaller offices will loan their staff. I've worked remotely with bigger offices before I moved to a bigger office, but you still get that exposure to bigger clientele.
Yeah, and that's another good point too. Like if you work in a smaller accounting firm, it might be a regional firm. It might not have offices all over and clients all over, so you might only be exposed to clients of a certain region. And alternatively, if you look at industry, if you work in industry, you're not guaranteed that you're working in the best department in that industry. You might be working in a weak department and even like a weak business unit within that department that might have a restatement one day, and you don't know just because you're a new accountant, and you might think this is the way things are. They might be behind in their systems, or they might be behind their technology, and you don't know that, and you might not get access to new technology like automation, blockchain, robotics that the firms are out there implementing. And even if you don't get exposure at this as the Big Four, you at least see it in the webcasts, but also on you have so many different clients, you're likely to see some really good things and some bad things. So
yes, that's
the difference.
Definitely an advantage.
Yeah, you know the difference between good and bad.
Mm-hmm. That's definitely an advantage of working in public accounting, being out there and having several different clients. You see what works and what doesn't work from various projects that you're working on.
Another cool thing about working on these large clients is that you get to tell, when the big commercials come on with the biggest companies in the world, you get to tell people, I've worked on that. And so is a Big Four experience worth it? If you're doing that analysis right now and you're asking yourself that question, then I would say you have to definitely factor the clients. And to me, it seems like it's more worth it. Definitely in the short term, but to me, even in the long term, it's worth the Big Four experience.
I agree. We appreciate your help in growing this podcast so we can continue to bring you the best Big Four content possible. You could help us out by providing a review on iTunes, sending us an email with your comments, and don't forget to share with your friends. There's a link below in the show notes. That's our show for today. Thanks for listening and have a great day.